Unerwartet singt eine schöne Frauenstimme.
Young and lovely. Yeah, and a girl from easy walk. And when she walks in the room, they all say,
Yeah, alright, for the people at home, you are listening to Fold by Fold, a podcast on, new music, experimental music, and the like. For some reason, it won't take my camera. It's probably because I'm recording via OBS Studio right now, and it's the driver's getting blocked or something. So I guess we'll have to resort to using audio only.
Rats.
Rats indeed, but yeah, this is Fold by Fold, the new music podcast. This is actually the very first episode being recorded, probably not the first one that will get released, but tonight we're here with Adam Naworal. Say hi, Adam.
Hey, everyone. Welcome from, sunny but cold as hell Florida right now.
Yeah, it's noon in Florida and it's mealtime in Germany, where I'm sitting. And yeah, as I said, it's Adam Naworal. Adam is a improvising multi-instrumentalist and music nerd like you've never met anyone of that caliber, like absolutely insanely knowledgeable music nerd. Amazing singer and musician and producer, and like you've pretty much like tried a little bit of everything, didn't you?
I've tried a bit of everything throughout my career. Oddly enough, I don't know if I should admit this, my earliest musical experiments, which I'm glad didn't survive, were actually my attempts at grindcore of all things.
Oh wow, starting strong.
Yeah, I'm really glad none of that survived, though, because it wasn't very good.
I mean, yeah, that's probably even the qualities sign, for grindcore music.
True. But yeah, I'd say I've pretty much dabbled in everything, but without trying to sound pretentious, I don't really like to put myself in any category other than, as you said, experimental, because some days I may feel like attempting noise, some day I may feel like attempting ambient, some days I may feel like attempting musique concrete.
Yeah. God damn. Maybe should we maybe play a few snippets for the people at home?
I mean, if you would like,
What would you like to introduce anybody to your kind of work?
Well, honestly, maybe it would be best if I just told them, if you would like to hear me and my wife together, we work as Tomokie's Cup.
Yeah.
We also both are involved with the United Isolation Ensemble, where we are two of the only Americans. Most everyone else is in England.
Yeah.
And that's a neat project, which I just want to mention, because that's a virtual collaboration where it's entirely up to chance.
Oh,
so
wow.
Everyone sends in their own stuff, and then once everything's sent in, the Mixmaster General, Jim Tetlow, will go ahead and find what goes best with what, apply the effects and whatnot, and then cobble together something. And so far, we've been extremely pleased with everything he's done with our work with this.
Wow. This is kind of amazing, like chance-based, or like, I don't know what you could even call it. Kind of like montage music with everyone sending stuff in completely oblivious to what everyone else is doing. That's super interesting.
I would say that's the best description of it, montage music. And the really remarkable thing is, so far, like, most of the results are rather musical without us having any knowledge of what we're going to be paired with until the finished result.
That's so fucking rad, man. Actually, I've had this kind of a similar experience. I'm currently working on an album where I've put improvisations over one another that were recorded on separate dates, in different locations and stuff. And kind of like putting it all together, looking at waveforms and shit, I kind of thought like, damn, this is kind of this sounds way too intentional for this being just a collection of.
Yeah, see, I love things like that because, as you said, it's like it's chance montage, which I believe is like I'm not going to say it's going to work 100% all the time because nothing ever does. But I'd say it works about 75 to 90% of the time.
Right. What I feel like is with judging the quality of music, it's always mostly just about is the thing trying to what is the goal of the music, and is this goal being achieved, and at which kind of level is this goal achieved. And with kind of montage stuff, it almost has to be brilliant, like the concept is so fucking crazy and undetermining to the end result that basically almost anything you can make with those kind of montages will end up pretty good, right?
I believe so. I mean, I think we all admit that a big influence on all of us was, coming from your home country, the production of Connie Plank is a huge influence on Jim when he mixes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, listen to your stuff. It sounds so damn, 70s and really like well produced, and there's some dub mixing influence in it.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. It's just wonderful stuff, like especially on this collaborative project here. We've got dub mixing. I think even with Timokie's Cup, you've got some kind of left field production sometimes, don't you?
We attempt to. I mean, Tomokie's Cup, to be fair, most of our stuff, we always viewed that as a solely live thing. So there's not a lot of studio Tomokie's Cup. There's things me and Amy do like on our own or with friends. But there's no real... The main I did forget to mention, speaking of dub production, the most dub production of my projects is The Red Ghouls with Brett Harold Hart.
Yeah, I remember listening to that. That was fucking insane. That sounded like some... I don't know, some really crazy... what's his name? Invaders of the Heart and stuff like that, kind of British dub person. Radical Jewish.
Adrian Sherwood?
I don't know.
On You Sound?
I think I will have to check on a record cover. Let me just Google it really
Dennis
quick.
Bovell?
Yeah, I know the scriptures that I gave. Jar Wobble. I meant Jar Wobble. Completely super plebeian take probably. But yeah, some of that production kind of reminded me of Jar Wobble at his most out there moments. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is actually, I decided to do a dub mix as a kind of tribute because that that we got the news that Lee Scratch Perry had left us.
Oh no, yeah, that was a dark hour this year.
And I'm never going to say I have anywhere near the level of skill that Lee Scratch Perry did. I mean, I doubt there's many who did, but I felt it would be a nice tribute to him just to like show that, dub was and still is a major part of me exploring the world of sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it fits completely. Like if there's a good reason to make a tribute recording for somebody, like Lee Scratch Perry's passing is definitely high up on that list.
And I'd love to say for the record while we're on this subject, I love that the world of experimental music is becoming much less of a white boys club. Because for a long time, definitely. I felt the world of experimental music was a white cis-het boys club.
Man, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Like even... Yeah, experimental music was kind of in a stupid place because, you've had the kind of academic circle, and we all know that they aren't very open to, people of color, people from different economic backgrounds.
You see how Julius Eastman was treated by the minimalists?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very good example. Yeah, and then you've got in the the other side of experimental music always came out of punk culture and shit like that. And like, Jesus Christ, like, there's so much like fucking racism going on in like progressive quote unquote punk circles, you know. Like, punk is some of the most reactionary bullshit sometimes.
It really is,
yeah.
and that's where like I agree with people that like punk had its purpose, but like, what is punk nowadays?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, yeah, punk. I mean, of course, yeah, it needed to happen. Mostly just for the, honestly, just for the shock value, because I don't think punk ever really had any any real agenda. You know, like, it was way too much shit going on under the punk umbrella. You know, there were certain projects that were super ideology based, and you know, super going in a single direction, very focused bands. And then you had bands, you know, who were basically just showing teenage antagonism, right? You know?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And I would just like to say, if I may, I would like to recommend to everyone is an example of early POC presence in experimental music that is derived from punk. I apologize for their name. I did not name them, but they are called the Beatniks. They became disposable. Then they became disposable heroes of hypocrisy and Spearhead. It's a Michael Franti project.
Uh-huh. Wow.
But it's industrial hip hop with actual Neubausen style percussion from the mean streets.
Wow, so that's the Beatniks. Okay, let me see if I can play like a snippet of that.
The only thing holding them back is when you're singing about Reagan, that's going to always date your music.
But I mean, it was such a good subject, right? Like,
yeah, he gave you a lot. He gave everyone a lot of grist for the political commentary mill. That's for sure.
he had a good run. Yeah.
Michael.
Okay, I'm playing a little bit of Beatniks right now for the listening audience. You can't hear it, unfortunately, but yeah, damn, this is some good stuff. Yeah, this is very, damn, yeah, very nice. Okay, that's your first music recommendation for the evening. Like, you fellas, you have to know, Adam is fucking, like, Jesus Christ, he's a library of obscure and left field music. Like, you've never seen anybody know so much shit. You know, like, it's fucking insane.
Don't be like me, kids. Have a life.
Right, fellas. Don't do drugs, you know, don't do experimental music. It will...
Don't do experimental music. It'll ruin ya.
Yeah, completely, man. Jesus. Wow, this is, yeah, like, looking at this live Beatniks gig, this is very Neubauten-esque, you know, with all the metal percussion and, wow, really great stuff. Damn.
And if it helps, they chose the name solely because they knew it would make their white audiences uncomfortable and have to think.
That's so fucking great. This is like a reverse black metal mentality, you know, where they would be super offensive just to have all the angsty white kids, you know, flock to the concerts.
Pretty much. Jello Biafra was a fan. That's why it came out on Alternative Tentacles.
Ah, I see. Yeah, this man is also, he's like a real truffle pick when it comes to fucked up, you know, punk adjacent music. He really knows some great stuff.
Yeah, well.
Like, he's the guy who got all those Americans onto Hino, right?
Oh, Jesus, yeah. I don't think I would have known about Hino if not for him. Although I do prefer Divara Hino.
Nice. I prefer, obviously, Kaiji Hino.
Well, he's good too.
Oh, I wish they did a collaboration, right? Like Heino, the German Schlager singer, and fucking KG Heino.
Oi, oi, oi.
Schwarzbraun ist die. Fucking wonderful.
Edelweiss, Edel.
Wonderful. Oh man, I will have to get up real quickly and get my pipe. I'll be back in like 10 seconds. Hang on.
while he's gone, listening audience, I'm going to go ahead and recommend to you another little thing.
The boy is back in town.
Well, my recommendation for the listening audience on top of that is going to have to be, I'm going to have to give a shout out right now to some very, very interesting people who I have come across lately.
All right, shoot.
With names like Coumadin, Coumadin,
Oh, wow.
and with names such as Caution X Gash, I'd like to give a shout out. I'd like to give Mikhail Haphead a shout out, Scott Craig a shout out, all my experimental music friends and fam a shout out. Please give them all a listen. They're worth it.
Wonderful. Yeah, when I upload this to YouTube, I will have links in the description for all these projects, so y'all at home can follow through.
And I would like to say, too, I love that, if I may, as a cishet man myself, I feel a little awkward saying this, but I love the fact that somebody once outright said to me, noise nowadays is very much an LGBTQ plus and POC thing. And there's only certain people who are let in outside of that. And I'm glad to be one of those, because after all the years of dealing with racism and fucking bullshit fascist and pedophile imagery and noise and power electronics, it's about time it became a more genuinely open space for people.
Damn, that's fucking beautiful, man. Like, honestly, damn. I'm really glad that you, like, kind of made this statement, because honestly, like, I feel like you're speaking for most of the white noise and experimental music crowd. And honestly, like, we've pulled some terrible shit in the past, right? Like, as you said it, pedophile imagery and all that kind of shit. And like, it's really like, even though I feel like, at least in Europe, experimental music is still kind of a white person's domain, mainly. But I feel like you're completely right. Like, we need to change that. We need to be more exclusive in case we are a white majority crowd. And honestly, like, us fucking white experimental musicians, we should be fucking careful with what we do and what we kind of appropriate. Like, back in the 80s, you will listen to people appropriating just, quote unquote tribal or ethnic sounding, stuff. And I'm guilty of this myself. Honestly, like, there's a couple of albums where I've played this
and
shit
see,
myself.
if I'm gonna be honest, my problem with like that whole tribal thing in experimental music was that I didn't like the use of the word tribal, and still don't, because it's othering. It's like making it sound like, ooh, this is exotic because
Right. Yeah. Oh, it's so
like,
primitive.
Unless it's like actually involving the people who the music was inspired by, I feel that it's very much almost colonialist. No better than Deep Forest.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Deep Forest are obviously the most disgusting example of this kind of thing. And they are not anything that we would consider experimental, obviously.
No, but for the sake of conversation, I once read Deep Forest described as basically European colonialism in music form, and that's kind of how I feel about that sort of thing.
Honestly, yeah, like, what are they? Like rich French folks or something, right?
That's correct. And I mean, and let me explain though, utilizing raga in your works and utilizing something where you actually understand is where I feel it's different. But I feel like quote unquote tribal ambient and tribal electronica, quote unquote, that's colonialist to me.
Absolutely. And there's lots of stuff going on in music education, both in America and in Europe right now, where finally non-Western music making techniques are being explored and understood and educated. And I find this is a wonderful thing, but then again, don't use it for this kind of exoticist, orientalist kind of effect, right? And
Exactly.
That just always seems exploitative and it just cannot be done well, you know, like if you rely on these kind of othering exoticist aspects, you know, I would advise you to trim it down. And I had to learn this the hard way myself when I composed the chamber piece that I'm still kind of revising. And I had some fucking, you know, I had the trombones imitating the Tibetan longhorns, the ragdun and the dungchen. And I had, you know, soprano chants playing a jialing part. And I showed this to my composition prof, and she was like, "Damn, do you really need it that extreme?" You know, like obviously you're showing interest in, you know, Tibetan music traditions, but don't do it fucking verbatim. You know, like kind of do something transformative with it, so it doesn't become a kind of, you know, a gimmick. So it doesn't become a showcase, like, you know, a human zoo kind of.
And I agree.
Yep.
I agree with that. And
Totally.
As another example, I would like to point out Paul Pena, the blind blues musician.
Oh yeah.
Who fell in love with tube throat singing and incorporated into his blues.
Yeah.
And as a result, gained the admiration and respect of all the big names in tube throat singing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like if it's well done and if you approach people with respect, you know, like what do you expect? Of course they're gonna show him some respect if he's doing it in a respectful manner. And we should really see this way more often, you know, like this whole fucking world music kind of thing often just seems so fucking exploitative and so gimmicky. And yeah, sometimes I kind of feel bad for the quote unquote ethnic musicians involved, you know, because they are just completely getting ripped off for the effect of it. But yeah, I mean, Paul Cena, that shit seemed pretty based, honestly. Damn, I'm losing my vocabulary rapidly.
Now, it is an example of this done well again.
Yeah,
you knew
exactly.
I was going to do this.
Yep.
As much as we've joked about how the DDR era of music was terrible, there's one band from the DDR I actually really like, and that's Bayon.
Oh yeah. Like the German Democratic Republic had some really interesting choices when it came to, you know, like commercial culture music and shit like that. But there's
what I like about Bayon is two Germans, a Cambodian, and I believe the other member was Cuban. So you can imagine what kind of music resulted from that meeting of the minds.
Yeah. It's truly amazing. Like, this is also another thing that I really have to link in the comment section. I'm taking notes right now.
You might as well link between too, because you know that between was going to come up if we're on this.
For real. Yeah, honestly, you could just freestyle recommend albums at this point, and like, goddamn, you would not miss a single time.
Well, I know, but I just felt it was important for the listeners to know where I stand on like experimental music. We gotta, like with everything, we gotta acknowledge what went wrong with experimental music overall. Noise, free jazz, a lot of this. We gotta accept where we as white people went wrong in the past with these scenes, and now we gotta think about where we, and I speak for myself here solely, but we gotta think about how we as white people and I as a cishet male, how we're going to like move forward and make sure that people getting in these scenes know that they're welcome, they're valid. And I just feel, you know, that's important for especially younger generations to know, because sometimes you see a bunch of like, you know, white dudes talk about their experimental music and you can be afraid like, oh, they're not going to like what I'm doing. We want to hear what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah, and even if you, like, I can completely imagine how fucking intimidating it must be if you go to a fucking noise venue, and it's just the white boy club, and you happen to be, you know, a person who's not in the white boy club. You know, that is just has to be a completely othering experience, and like, honestly, like, what the fuck is going on? Like, we all pride ourselves in our, you know, anti-racism and anti-fascist efforts in these kind of venues, you know. We all do all the fucking virtue signaling, but it's not really happening, right? It's still kind of a very exclusive scene, and even, like, last week, I met a dude, not gonna name his project, even though it's fucking excellent, probably will name drop them in another episode just to to not leave the breadcrumb trail. But the thing is, this guy recognized me at one of their shows, and I'm a fan of theirs, so I was stoked. And he was like, "Do you make music? Are you Paul Hermansen?" And I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" You were the guy in the fucking, atmospheric black metal band there. And we kicked it off really well, and I expressed that I'm a fan, he knew my stuff. So I was like, yeah, let's fucking collaborate. But even with us, kind of fucking both almost in the same age group, both kind of into experimental circles, both from Germany. Even with me, he was kind of apprehensive about collaboration, like there's something in these kind of experimental music scenes, especially when we're talking black metal and the like, where people just seem like misanthropic motherfuckers most of the time, honestly.
And I mean, having been a nihilistic youth myself, I get the appeal. I get the whole, like, you're learning about yourself and sometimes you just feel the need to be edgy, but I also feel that you're right. Like, I feel that the black metal scene especially, there's some great stuff coming from there, don't get me wrong, but that scene especially comes with an onus already because of all the horrible racist and LGBTQ phobic and this, I mean, anti-Christianity doesn't bother me that much. Everyone's entitled their opinion, but I didn't particularly like seeing old churches be burned down because I appreciate them for the artistry, if nothing else. And I think that's... I think
honestly,
that
was super stupid, and especially, like, we can't forget, even if we want to appropriate, the edgy fucking anti-Christian aesthetic, we have to remember that these acts were committed by, like, the biggest Nazi nutcase, the biggest Nazi nutcase in Norway. Nice alliteration.
Yeah, as opposed to the biggest one in Finland, who I don't even want to mention his name, but kind of upsets me. People who otherwise, like, keep a good watch are all like, but he makes harsh noisecore and he sings for black metal bands.
Oh,
and he runs a shop that sells racist records and literature.
Yeah. We all know how it goes, like, fuck that shit. Honestly, yeah. And that is, especially in the metal scene, that's so fucking dodgy, like, there's a metal record store in Dortmund, the next biggest city where I live and where I study. And they, like, the guy prides himself on being, like, a punk legend in Germany, whom he really is, and kind of being, kind of left-wing anarchist kind of dude. And of course, they sell Nazi records in there. And he's like, yeah, but it's just metal music, it's apolitical, separate the art from the artist. And like, I'm completely for death of the author, right? But honestly, if you had some kind of backbone as an old school punker, you wouldn't do that kind of shit.
No, you wouldn't. And I'm just gonna say that's what reminds me of one of the weirdest things to happen in Germany. Rocco Rama Records actually began as a very left-wing punk label.
Yeah.
You even had Casper Brotsman's first punk band.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I guess the owner's ideology just changed, and all of a sudden they're putting out Screwdriver.
Yep.
Okay.
I think the story went like, when like, and when this started happening, they didn't go straight with Screwdriver. They had some, like, fasc-leaning bands, and people were complaining about it. And then the label got offended, like, damn, we're a punk label, man. We can't get politics in between us, like, we have to be, unpolitical. We are, like, above that. We are punk, Like, holy shit, this is no problem with my with the punk ethos that I have. Like, it's just so, I don't know, it's so wishy-washy when it comes to anything kind of remotely political.
I think, wasn't it Bosa Uncles that got in trouble?
The uncles. Goddamn, this motherfucker is fucking insane. Like, Adam Naworal will, like, point you to expressionist Italian tape music and then mention Böse Onkels to you, a group that I thought outside of Germany nobody would even know about. Böse Onkels were a group. They were like an apolitical kind of oi punk, Deutschrock German group. They kind of got outed as Nazis, they were in some Nazi circles at youth. And they kind of tried to brush it aside, but it's like so obvious that the music is kind of, like, I don't know, like beer tent nationalist kind of stuff.
It's very right-wing violent, if nothing else.
Yeah, like at some point they really embraced the Nazi stigma and just said fuck it, and they did straight Rechtsrock.
Yeah, and that's just what I'm saying. I'm glad that these sort of things, I'm glad that, like, despite what, I mean, I know what you said about the guy with the shop, but I do feel more people are starting to have a backbone, and I do feel that, like, people are starting to not let things slide.
Definitely, yeah, and I'm gonna embrace that shit. I mean, the guy that I was talking about, he's like in the 60s right now. He's a punk boomer. He's really a legend in the scene here in Germany, but it's, like, anybody from Germany will know who I'm talking about. Like, I'm talking about the punk legend from Dortmund, Germany, who owns a record store. People know who it is. And I actually did my, what's it called? I did some working there as a sub, what the fuck is it called again? Not an apprenticeship, even smaller than that. Just some, minor work duties there. And it was generally like a comfy place to hang out, there would always be some obscure black metal would be blasting, It's really weird ass shit. And you had strong coffee. This is pretty wonderful about the store. You would get in there, and while you looked at records, people would offer you something to drink. And if you wanted a beer, you will get a beer. If you wanted a Coke, you will get a Coke. If you want a coffee, you will get a coffee. Like, they really threw out so much money for drinks just to accommodate people in their store, which is beautiful, innit?
I mean, yeah.
That was really the nicest thing about the store, and I don't know if they still do that, because honestly, the records are overpriced, and if I even buy records, it's hardly any metal. Like that's not really what I'm gonna buy these days. Damn, we're past the half-hour mark. Should we just continue, or should we continue
I'm
talking
fine with
and
it,
shut
because
off
I
the thing?
had something to say.
Okay.
You met the official biggest punk legend in Germany, though, from what you've told me. Namely, Alvaro.
Oh, yeah. But unknowingly, pretty much, because when I met him, I didn't really know who the fuck the guy was.
And then it took me telling you about him for you to be like, oh shit, I met that guy. I thought he was fucking with us.
And I just didn't know what the fuck his problem was, He was, like, behaving very, very kind of weirdly, and, just a very weird guy, and I didn't know what to make of him,
That sounds like him.
Yeah, I was thinking he was confused, he had some grandiose fantasies or something, but it turned out to actually be a punk legend I had never heard of.
Whose solo career just happens to be the furthest thing from punk possible,
Exactly.
and thus the most punk thing ever.
That's great. Yeah, we'll have to definitely link Alvaro in the YouTube comments.
From what I've heard, he likes to walk around Germany wearing a trench coat like a drug dealer, and he'll be
Exactly.
like, you want to buy some CDs?
Jesus fucking Christ. Super sketchy dude. Like, seemed completely out of his mind. Yeah. Was very weird. And I was very drunk when I interacted with him. And I was with some guys, like, we were kind of, we were taking the piss, honestly. Like, we didn't know what the fuck was going on. This like, motherfucker in a trench coat, like.
But you gotta appreciate when people are themselves to a T without harming anyone. I mean...
Yeah, I guess you're right. He didn't really seem threatening. He just seemed very confused.
Yeah, from what I've heard, he's a very strange guy, and I mean, listening to his music, gee, I never would have got that impression.
Yeah.
but yeah, he's apparently, like, he's on the right side. He's extremely anti-fascist. He's extremely
Exactly. Yeah.
left-wing.
Yeah. He was completely okay. Like, I don't really remember any details to the interaction, just because we were blasted, and it was just another kind of weird anecdote on that evening. But then the dude seemed kind of out there, definitely. And I mean, we're not judging here. Like on this podcast, like depending on when this episode drops, we might have already had like multiple people on the autism spectrum. I'm on the autism spectrum myself, so this is a very spectrum-y kind of podcast, you know.
And I would like to say, for the benefit of everyone listening, including people we know, I'm actually on the advice of several of my friends, yourself included, I'm actually ready to get tested because I believe I've been misdiagnosed in the past, and there's so much about me that makes me think I'm on the spectrum. Like, how obsessed am I with krautrock? And I have been for like half my life.
Exactly. Like if like you've got a special interest in some kind of weird ass music, like chances are pretty good you're on the spectrum. Like this is how it works. I don't make the rules, you know.
You don't, but I would just like to say that for my sake, so everyone understands where I'm coming from too, and doesn't think I'm judging either, because I don't have any proof yet, but I know there's something going on with me, and I'm going to be getting answers to that soon. So wish me luck, everyone.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think at some point I'll have Anthony Osborne on this podcast. Amazing British kind of experimental free jazz, dub-influenced musician and producer. And he's very vocal about his Asperger's diagnosis, and he's also an elder. I don't know if he's an elder to you, but he's definitely one to me, and this is very interesting for me, because most of the Aspie people I know are basically in my age range, because older people, you know, they didn't even bother to get diagnosed, you know, like, it's... I mean, like, most autism spectrum disorders are, like, pretty unnoticeable, right? Like, obviously you don't function in society, but that has societal reasons, you know, that doesn't really necessarily have anything to do with you personally. And
that's a very good way of pointing it out.
Honestly, like, I think that mental illness in general is pretty much more a political issue than it is a health issue, you know?
I agree, and it's a social issue as well, more than a health issue.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's one thing. I'm glad we're living in an age where people at least understand, and we actually are starting to get the resources we need.
Yeah, I feel that.
Because I'm glad we're past the days when it's like, oh, you're just crazy. Off to the asylum with you. I'm glad those days are fucking over.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, even though, like, they aren't really over in Germany, honestly. I don't know what it's like in America. I guess it's just a lot of people, and, like, the health system is kind of fucked. So lots of people go unnoticed, I guess. And, like, sometimes for the benefit of them, honestly. Like, I think in Germany we have a little bit of a problem with, like, mental health stigma, and, like, people get themselves checked out, and then they really suffer from the diagnosis alone. Like, some people really struggle with being diagnosed, for example, with autism spectrum disorder, or with any other kind of mental issue. Like, the diagnosis is even worse than the issues they had in the first place.
That's a pity.
I think that can really happen. Like, there can be a rebound effect. On the other hand, like, autism diagnosis is awesome as fuck for the fucking disability benefits alone. At least we get those in Germany. And honestly, like, if I didn't have those, I'd be super fucked. You know, I'd be really fucked writing my kind of music.
I have a few things I could say about the American health system, but I'll just leave it at, considering after insurance, my wife and I still owe $1,100 for just to make sure she didn't have breast cancer. Yeah, the American health system is kind of fucked.
Jesus.
And this is after insurance.
Oh no. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, this. Oh, goddamn. This is what you hate to hear, you know, honestly. Like, I mean, Europe is plenty fucked, but, like, this kind of shit normally wouldn't fly here, you know? Like, That's what we have
Well,
health insurance for, you know, like health insurance is there to kind of give you fucking cancer exams and, you know, whatever the fuck you need to kind of know where you're at.
And I'd like to say for all our European listeners, because I know that all our American listeners already know, don't worry, most of us in the U.S. do not like the way it is here any more than you like hearing about it. I assure you that.
Exactly, like there's definitely a media misconception, you know, like in Europe people have the idea that most people in America are in some way kind of pro-establishment, and like I'm actually even counting the far right as somewhat counter-establishment, you know, even though they mostly represent the establishment, obviously, you know, but there is some revolutionary potential even in those fucking idiots, you know, and apparently system solidarity isn't really a thing that happens in America way too much. Like even the people who are in the parties, you know, talk about corruption, you know, talk about that kind of shit. It's really not very much a unified thing, and even if it be in very abstract kind of terminology, and even if the people obviously have like a kind of deficit when talking about these kind of things because they are so fucking misinformed, or like, I don't know, like obviously very elitist European thing to say, but like it seems like the fucking education system has failed a lot of people over there.
And I don't blame anyone for their conceptions of the U.S., but I would just politely like to remind everyone there are people in the U.S. like myself and Thomas Milivek, and even though she's not a big fan of mine right now, Sioma Klotko.
Oh yeah,
there's
shout
a lot
out
of us
Thomas
here who
and
don't like it.
Yeah, shout out Thomas, shout out Sioma, like damn.
Shout out
like,
Dylan.
I
Dylan
fucking
Hauser.
I fucking hate the fact that y'all have beef right now. Like I don't like my parents fighting. You know what I mean?
There's no.
Like I don't like it when people, you know,
I'm ready to talk
who I look
when
up to don't
when
get
she
along.
is. I'll just say that. I'm ready to talk when she is. So I wouldn't even say it's beef.
All right.
But I'd also like to give a shout out to Dylan Hauser and Kristen Black.
All right.
And Kristen Black is one of my favorites. She is Dylan's partner, and she has just dropped a new project called Earthbrain, and it is some of the most textured electronic noise I've ever heard.
All right. That's Earthbrain by
Earthbrain's the name of the project.
Yeah. By whom?
It's her name is Kristen Black, but the name of the project, the band itself, one person band, is Earthbrain.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just writing it down so I can remember to link it when this episode drops. I really don't know like who's gonna be the pilot episode. Honestly, I'm thinking towards Lee Chapman because like when we're shooting the shit, it's usually kind of funny.
Hey, I don't mind. I'm just glad to participate. So
honestly, it's been a fucking pleasure to talk to you, and I think we're gonna continue talking after I quit this recording. Oh no, actually, you have to leave, right? You have to leave to visit your parents.
We do have to leave in 10 minutes to go visit my parents for Colonialization Day. I mean Thanksgiving.
Wonderful. All right, yeah, I fucking forgot that it's Christopher Columbus raping the West Day.
That's tomorrow. Yet another American tradition I don't entirely understand.
All right, Adam. Yeah, it's been a fucking pleasure to talk to you.
Same with you.
Yeah, I hope we can catch up privately soon. I promise I will have some more time towards the tail end of the year. And yeah.
Same here.
Wonderful.
Same here.
Wonderful. All right, it's been a lovely episode. Wonderful unofficial pilot, since this is really the first one we recorded.
Well, if I may, I'd like to make one more statement towards the end here.
Sure.
And this is all I gotta say. For everyone listening, whoever you are, if you've got an idea, act on it. Go do it. Make that music. Woo. Write that short story. Make that short film.
Yes.
Make that art. Don't let the idea die with the author.
Exactly.
Create. Yeah. Put yourself out there. Somebody will appreciate you. It might not happen right away, but somebody will.
Damn. Yeah, we're gonna leave it at that. Wonderful inspirational quote. This was Adam Naworal from Florida. If you're in the Florida area, check out Timokie's Cup. If you're not from the Florida area, check out the United Isolation Ensemble. Sorry, I'm getting drunk.
As you do. Well, thank you so much, Paul. This has been perfect.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks, Adam.
No
and
problem.
I guess, thanks everyone for listening. We're gonna sign out. Bye-bye.